Guess what? The world's most graceful art form started as a royal flex. That's right. Before ballet was about tutus, toe shoes, and tragic swans, it was about power, politics, and some very fancy footwork from kings who could barely dance. Today, we're pirouetting back through the surprisingly dramatic history of ballet, from court performances and cultural propaganda to the modern battle of art versus athleticism. So point your toes, straighten your posture, and try not to pull a hamstring as we dive into the history of ballet. This is Guess What?, where curiosity always lands on point, even if the rest of us land flat on our faces. Ballet didn't start on stage. It started at parties. In 15th century Italy, long before anyone thought of grand theaters or orchestra pits, the elite entertained guests with balletti, or little dances. These weren't quick tick-tock moves. They were elaborate productions meant to impress visiting nobility and foreign diplomats. Every twirl, bow, and gesture said one thing: look how cultured we are. These early ballets blended dance, poetry, music, and elaborate costumes. They were social events designed to show grace, wealth, and refinement, basically medieval LinkedIn with better outfits. Then came a woman who would change everything: Catherine de' Medici. When she married King Henry II of France in 1533, she imported her Italian love for these lavish spectacles to Paris. Under her influence, the French court turned these entertainments into serious productions, complete with stage designs, narrative themes, and intricate choreography. The first recorded ballet, Ballet Comique de la Reine, premiered in 1581. It was based on the myth of Circe and lasted more than 5 hours. 5 hours. Audiences watched dancers in heavy costumes glide around candlelit halls, and when it finally ended, they probably applauded out of sheer survival instinct. If ballet had a hype man, it was King Louis XIV of France, the Sun King himself. Louis didn't just like ballet, he lived it. In 1653, at just 14, he starred as the sun in Le Ballet de la Nuit, performing in shimmering gold tights and a feathered crown. The image stuck. He became known as the Sun King, symbolizing his divine right to rule. But Louis wasn't satisfied being the lead dancer. He wanted to own the whole show. In 1661, he founded the Académie Royale de Danse, the first formal ballet academy in the world. Its mission? To standardize the technique and train professionals. This codified the 5 basic ballet positions we still use today. Every plié, relevé, and arabesque stems from that blueprint. And because Louis's court spoke French, the terminology stuck. That's why you hear ballet instructors yelling tendu instead of stretch your foot. Ballet became more than art. It was etiquette. At Versailles, noblemen were expected to dance as gracefully as they spoke. The ability to perform elegant steps symbolized discipline and control, 2 qualities Louis valued in both dance and politics. Essentially, if you couldn't dance, you couldn't advance. Court dancing was the ultimate networking event, just with more powdered wigs. As ballet spread through Europe, it began to break free from the palace walls. By the 18th century, audiences wanted more emotion and less aristocratic posturing. French choreographer Jean-Georges Noverre championed ballet d'action, a radical idea that dance should tell a story through movement and expression, not just decorative steps. This paved the way for ballet as true theater. Dancers began portraying complex characters, heroes, villains, lovers, and spirits, using mime and body language. Meanwhile, the spotlight started shifting toward women. Early female dancers traded bulky gowns for lighter, flowing dresses that revealed their artistry and athleticism. The more they moved, the more audiences were captivated. It was the first time ballet hinted at what it would become: poetic, emotional, and deeply human. Not just choreography, but storytelling in motion. Then came the 19th century, and ballet took flight, literally. This was the Romantic era, when art became obsessed with dreams, mystery, and the supernatural. Ballet mirrored that perfectly. Dancers played ethereal beings, ghosts, fairies, forest nymphs, all gliding between love and tragedy. This is when ballerinas began dancing on point, rising onto their toes to seem weightless. It wasn't about athleticism yet. It was about illusion. They weren't women anymore. They were spirits. The first major point ballets, La Sylphide, 1832, and Giselle, 1841, became instant classics. Both featured doomed love stories and women caught between worlds, one mortal, one magical. Costumes changed too. The tutu emerged, allowing the audience to see intricate footwork while maintaining that floaty, cloud-like look. Stage lighting grew softer, using gas lamps to create a ghostly glow. Romantic ballet gave us the archetype we still associate with the art form today. Delicate yet powerful, fragile yet fierce, and always one heartbreak away from perfection. By the late 1800s, ballet had found a new home, Imperial Russia. At the Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg, choreographer Marius Petipa and composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky created masterpieces that still define classical ballet. Swan Lake, The Sleeping Beauty, and The Nutcracker. These weren't dainty court entertainments anymore. They were full-scale productions with enormous orchestras, complex choreography, and hundreds of dancers. Ballet had become an engine of national pride, funded by the czars and adored by the people. Then came the early 1900s, and ballet exploded into modernity. Entrepreneur Sergei Diaghilev and his company, the Ballet Russe, brought Russian innovation to Western Europe. They shocked Paris with wild designs, bold colors, and music that sounded like chaos, in a good way. Dancer Vaslav Nijinsky became the first true ballet superstar, expressive, androgynous, and intense. His performance in The Rite of Spring, 1913, set to Stravinsky's jarring score, was so unconventional that the audience rioted on opening night. Imagine a Taylor Swift concert ending in a fistfight over tempo changes. That's the passion ballet inspired. By the mid-20th century, ballet was unstoppable. Russia continued its dominance through the Bolshoi and Kirov theaters, producing legendary dancers like Rudolf Nureyev, Mikhail Baryshnikov, and Anna Pavlova, each redefining the limits of physical and emotional expression. When Nureyev defected to the West in 1961, it made international headlines. His leap to freedom symbolized not just artistic rebellion, but human defiance. Baryshnikov followed, and the two became icons, turning ballet into something cool, even masculine, in the eyes of the world. Meanwhile, in America, George Balanchine, another Russian émigré, created an entirely new style. His neoclassical ballet stripped away the heavy costumes and fairy tale stories, focusing purely on form, rhythm, and speed. It was elegant minimalism, ballet for the modern age. From London's Royal Ballet to the Australian Ballet, from Tokyo to Toronto, schools multiplied. What began as a royal pastime had officially become a global language, one spoken entirely through movement. Today, ballet stands at a crossroads, both timeless and transforming. It remains the foundation for nearly every dance genre, from Broadway to contemporary to figure skating. But new voices are pushing its boundaries. Choreographers are blending classical technique with modern influences, hip-hop, jazz, acrobatics, even AI-generated visuals. Companies like Complexions and the Dutch National Ballet are rewriting what ballet can look like. Inclusivity is also reshaping the stage. Once a fortress of Eurocentric ideals, ballet now features dancers of every race, gender, and body type. Men perform on point, women take on male solos, and dancers wear skin-toned tights that match their complexion. Technology, too, is dancing along. Motion capture, holograms, LED tutus, and augmented stages. Some shows look like living dreamscapes. The art form that once served kings now belongs to everyone. Behind the grace lies unbelievable grit. Ballet may look effortless, but it's one of the most demanding physical disciplines on earth. Professional dancers train up to 8 hours a day, perfecting every movement until it's burned into muscle memory. Their bodies are instruments, tuned, tested, and sometimes broken. Blisters, bruised toenails, torn ligaments. It's all part of the price of perfection. Next time you see a ballerina floating across the stage, remember, that serenity is built on exhaustion, pain, and decades of work. It's poetry written in sweat. From royal courts to global stages, ballet has outlasted monarchies, revolutions, and every passing trend. It began as a display of power, evolved into a vessel of beauty, and continues as a living testament to discipline and imagination. Ballet proves that when humanity seeks perfection, it often finds art instead. So from kings in tights to ballerinas on point, the history of ballet is a story of elegance, endurance, and evolution. Proof that sometimes the hardest art is the one that looks the easiest. That's today's episode of Guess What? If you enjoyed walking carefully through history with me, hit subscribe, because next time, who knows what we'll uncover. Until then, stay curious, and maybe don't challenge a ballerina to a leg workout.